My name is Sophia Vaughn, and at 24, I never expected our annual family reunion would become the catalyst for the most satisfying revenge of my entire life. Standing in my childhood bedroom at 6 a.m., staring at an empty driveway where 4 cars should have been parked, should have been simply devastating. But years of being treated as the family disappointment had built up to this moment of pure clarity. I still hear my Aunt Carol's cold words echoing from last year's reunion. Sophia's just not cut out for success like the rest of us. Some people are born to follow, not lead. The memory of that night when I overheard my own parents discussing whether to even invite me this year still makes my chest tight with hurt and determination. Before I reveal what made their faces turn ghostly pale when they saw me 6 months later, let me know in the comments if you've ever had to fight twice as hard just to prove you belonged in your own family. Because what happened next changed everything, and I mean everything. I grew up in what appeared to be a picture-perfect extended family in Denver, Colorado. The Vaughns were known throughout our community as the family that had it all together. My grandfather, Thomas Vaughn, built a successful construction company from nothing. My father, Michael, followed in his footsteps, expanding the business into commercial real estate. My uncle James became a prominent lawyer, and my Aunt Carol married a surgeon. Then there was me, the black sheep who couldn't seem to get anything right. Our family gatherings were legendary. Every summer, we'd rent a massive lake house in Colorado Springs for a week-long reunion. 17 family members across 3 generations would descend on this beautiful property, and it was supposed to be magical. For everyone else, it was. For me, it became an annual reminder of how I didn't measure up. My cousin Marcus, Uncle James's son, was everything I wasn't. At 26, he was already a junior partner at his father's law firm, drove a BMW, and had just gotten engaged to his college sweetheart. My cousin Bethany, Aunt Carol's daughter, was a pediatric nurse who volunteered at free clinics and somehow managed to look effortlessly beautiful while saving children's lives. And then there was me, Sophia, the college dropout who worked at a local coffee shop and lived in a studio apartment above a laundromat. The differential treatment wasn't subtle. During family dinners, Marcus would regale everyone with stories of his latest legal victories while I was asked to help in the kitchen. When family photos were taken, I somehow always ended up in the back row, partially hidden behind someone's shoulder. When gifts were exchanged during holidays, Marcus and Bethany received thoughtful, expensive presents while I got generic gift cards. But the group chat incident? That was the final straw. It was a Tuesday morning in June when I discovered I'd been excluded from the family reunion planning group chat. I only found out because my mom accidentally sent me a screenshot meant for my dad, showing a conversation titled, Vaughn Family Lake House 2024, The Crew. 17 people were in that chat. 17 people had been planning our annual reunion for 3 months. Discussing accommodations, meal planning, activities, carpooling arrangements. Everyone was there except me. When I confronted my mom about it, her response was devastating in its casual cruelty. Oh honey, we just thought, well, you've seemed so busy with work and everything. We didn't want to burden you with all the planning details. Busy with work? I worked at a coffee shop. It's not like I was performing brain surgery. The truth was much simpler and more painful. They didn't think I was important enough to include in the planning because they didn't really want me there at all. I spent that evening scrolling through 3 months of messages I'd never seen. They'd planned everything without me. Car assignments, room sharing, meal rotations, hiking schedules, game tournaments. My name appeared exactly twice in 3 months of planning. Marcus, should someone tell Sophia about the dates? Aunt Carol, Michael will handle it. That was it. I wasn't a participant in my own family's biggest tradition. I was an afterthought. But what happened next morning made everything crystal clear. I woke up on departure day to complete silence. Our house, which should have been bustling with last-minute packing and breakfast chaos, was eerily quiet. I walked downstairs to find a note on the kitchen counter. Sophia, left early to avoid traffic. See you at the lake house. Dad's driving alone, so there wasn't room in any of the cars. Can you figure out your own way there? The address is attached. Love, Mom. For cars. 17 people. And somehow no room for me. I stood in that empty kitchen, holding that note, and something inside me shifted. This wasn't just neglect anymore. This was deliberate exclusion disguised as poor planning. My phone buzzed with a text from the group chat I wasn't part of. Someone had accidentally added me to a message. Marcus, road trip playlist is fire. Can't wait to see everyone's faces when they hear Dad's karaoke choices face with years of joy. Attached was a photo of all 4 cars lined up in our driveway at 5 a.m., windows down, music playing, everyone laughing and excited. In the background, you could see my bedroom window, dark and silent. They'd literally partied outside my window while I slept, then left without me. That's when I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of scrambling to find a way to the lake house, instead of playing the grateful afterthought who shows up late and apologetic, I decided to do something different. I wasn't going. For the first time in my life, I was going to disappoint them before they could disappoint me. I turned off my phone and spent the day walking around Denver, thinking, for 24 years, I'd been trying to earn a place in a family that had already decided I didn't deserve one. I'd been playing a game where the rules were rigged against me from the start. But here's what they didn't know about me, what nobody knew about me, because they'd never bothered to ask. I wasn't actually failing at life. I was planning something bigger. For the past 2 years, while they saw me as just a coffee shop worker, I'd been building something extraordinary. Every morning before my shift, every evening after work, every weekend they assumed I was wasting away in my tiny apartment. I was working. I'd been developing a mobile app. Not just any app, a scheduling and communication platform specifically designed for small businesses in the food service industry. I'd noticed how chaotic scheduling was at the coffee shop, how much time managers wasted trying to coordinate shifts, how often miscommunication led to overstaffing or understaffing. So I taught myself to code. YouTube videos, online courses, coding boot camps I attended virtually. While Marcus was updating his LinkedIn with legal victories and Bethany was posting photos from medical conferences, I was quietly building something revolutionary. My app, called Shift Sync, could automate scheduling, handle time-off requests, manage payroll integration, and create seamless communication between managers and employees. I'd been beta testing it at our coffee shop for 6 months, and the results were incredible. Our scheduling conflicts dropped by 89%. Manager stress decreased dramatically. Employee satisfaction went through the roof. But I'd told no one in my family. Why would I? They'd never asked what I was working on, never showed interest in my goals, never treated my ambitions as worthy of attention. While they were at the lake house that week, having their perfect reunion without me, I was in San Francisco, meeting with investors. I'd flown to California using money I'd saved from 2 years of living like a broke college student while secretly building my future. The meetings I'd lined up were with 3 different venture capital firms who'd expressed interest in Shift Sync based on my cold emails and demo videos. I was terrified. I'd never pitched to real investors before. I was a coffee shop worker from Denver who'd taught herself to code. These were Silicon Valley professionals who'd funded companies worth millions. But I had something they wanted, a solution to a real problem, backed by solid data and proven results. The first meeting was at a sleek downtown office with floor-to-ceiling windows and modern art I didn't understand. Sarah Chen, the lead partner, was exactly what I'd expected. Sharp suit, sharper questions, and an intimidating confidence that made me feel like I was back at family dinner trying to justify my existence. "Tell me about your background," she started, and I could see her mentally categorizing me as soon as I mentioned the coffee shop. But then I showed her the data. ShiftSync hadn't just improved our coffee shop's operations. I'd quietly rolled it out to 12 other small businesses in Denver. Restaurants, retail stores, a local gym. Every single location showed measurable improvements in efficiency, employee satisfaction, and manager productivity. "These numbers can't be real," Sarah said, scrolling through my presentation on her tablet. "They're real," I replied, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely confident in a room full of people who were supposed to intimidate me. And they're consistent across every business type we've tested. By the end of that first meeting, Sarah Chun was asking about my scaling timeline and funding requirements. The second meeting went even better. The third meeting changed my life. David Rodriguez, managing partner at Golden Gate Ventures, didn't just want to invest in ShiftSync. He wanted to acquire it. "We've been looking for exactly this solution for 18 months, he told me across a conference table that probably cost more than my car. "Our portfolio includes 6 companies in the restaurant and retail space, and scheduling chaos is the #1 operational complaint we hear." He slid a term sheet across the table. I tried not to let my hands shake as I read the number. $2.8 million for a full acquisition, plus a consulting contract that would pay me $180,000 annually to oversee integration across their portfolio companies. $2.8 million. I was going from coffee shop worker to millionaire in a single signature. "I need to think about it," I said, because that's what people in movies always said, even though every cell in my body was screaming yes. "Of course. Take the weekend." "But Sophia," David smiled. "This is the kind of opportunity that changes generations. Not just your life, your family's life." I flew back to Denver on Thursday afternoon while my family was still at their perfect reunion, still posting photos of their perfect time together, still congratulating themselves on their perfect family bond. They had no idea their disappointment was about to become their biggest success story. Friday afternoon, my phone started buzzing with messages from the family group chat I'd apparently been added to at some point. "Mom, Sophia, we missed you this week. Can't wait to hear why you couldn't make it. Aunt Carol, hope everything's okay, sweetie. Marcus, yo cuz, you missed Dad's legendary fish fry. There's always next year." The casual assumption that I'd had some minor crisis, that I'd wanted to be there but couldn't manage it, that next year I'd certainly be back to play my role as the family afterthought. It was almost funny. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I spent Friday evening with my lawyer. Yes, I had a lawyer now, reviewing the acquisition paperwork. I spent Saturday morning at the bank, setting up accounts I'd never dreamed I'd need. I spent Saturday afternoon buying my first real business wardrobe. On Sunday, while they were driving home from their perfect week, I signed the papers that made me a millionaire. The money would be transferred within 48 hours. The announcement would go live on Golden Gate Ventures' website on Tuesday. By Wednesday, the local business journal would pick up the story. But I had something special planned for Monday. Every month, my parents hosted a family dinner. It was supposedly a chance for everyone to catch up, but it really served as a showcase for Marcus and Bethany to share their latest achievements while I helped serve food and listened to subtle commentary about my life choices. This month's dinner was scheduled for Monday at 6 p.m., exactly 48 hours after I'd signed the papers that changed everything. I showed up wearing a new navy blazer and carrying a bottle of champagne that cost more than I used to make in a week. Sophia, Mom looked surprised to see me dressed professionally. You look nice. Job interview. Something like that, I smiled, kissing her cheek and heading to the dining room where everyone was gathering. The usual cast was there: Mom and Dad, Uncle James and Aunt Carol, Marcus and his fiancée Jennifer, Bethany and her boyfriend Ryan. The people who'd spent the past week bonding over their shared relief at not having to accommodate the family failure. Dinner conversation followed its predictable pattern. Marcus talked about a big case he'd won. Bethany shared stories from the children's hospital. Jennifer showed off her engagement ring updates. Ryan discussed his promotion at the marketing firm. And how are things with you, Sophia? Aunt Carol asked with that particular tone she used when addressing me, like she was speaking to a child or someone slightly mentally impaired. Actually, things are wonderful, I said, taking a sip of wine. I have some news to share. The table went quiet. They weren't used to me having news. I've been working on a project for the past 2 years, I continued, enjoying the way everyone leaned forward slightly. They probably expected me to announce I'd been promoted to shift supervisor or finally enrolled in community college. It's a technology solution for small businesses. An app that streamlines scheduling and communication. Uncle James nodded politely. That sounds interesting, honey. It is interesting, I agreed. Interesting enough that Golden Gate Ventures acquired it this weekend. Marcus's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Acquired it? For $2.8 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Aunt Carol's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been panic. Marcus actually choked on his wine. Bethany's mouth fell open in a way that would have been comical if I wasn't savoring every second of their shock. I'm sorry, what? Dad's voice was barely above a whisper. I sold my company to a venture capital firm in San Francisco for $2.8 million, I repeated clearly. The announcement goes live tomorrow morning. What happened next was everything I dreamed of and more devastating than I'd expected. The questions came rapid fire. When did you start a company? Mom, how do you even know about venture capital? Marcus, clearly offended that I'd succeeded in a world he thought was beyond my understanding. Why didn't you tell us? Bethany, are you sure this is legitimate? Aunt Carol, because of course. But the most revealing question came from Uncle James. Why didn't you ask us for help? We could have introduced you to people, given you advice. I looked around the table at these people who'd excluded me from their group chat, who'd left for a family vacation without ensuring I had a way to get there, who'd spent years treating me like an obligation rather than an equal. When exactly would I have asked for help? I said quietly, during the 3 months you planned the family reunion without including me in a single conversation? Or maybe while you were all loading into cars outside my bedroom window at 5 a.m., leaving me sleeping in the house. The silence was deafening. Sophia, that was just poor coordination. Mom started, but I held up my hand. No, it wasn't. It was a pattern. You've spent years making it clear that I don't matter as much as everyone else at this table. My achievements aren't worth celebrating. My struggles aren't worth supporting, and my presence isn't necessary for family events. I stood up, my champagne untouched. But here's what you never understood about me. I wasn't failing. I was working. While you were all posting photos of your conventional successes, I was building something extraordinary. While you were congratulating each other on your predictable career paths, I was creating a solution that actual business leaders wanted to buy. I pulled out my phone and showed them the announcement that would go live in the morning. There was my photo, my name, my story. Local entrepreneurs app acquired by major VC firm for nearly $3 million. Sophia, we're proud of you, Dad said weakly, but I was already walking toward the door. I'm sure you are. Now. The announcement went live Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. By 10 a.m., my phone was buzzing constantly. Local news wanted interviews. The Denver Business Journal wanted a feature story. 3 other VC firms reached out about future projects. But the most telling responses came from my family. Marcus called first, "'Cause this is incredible. We should celebrate. I know some great investment lawyers if you need advice on managing your money." Bethany texted, "Sophia, why didn't you tell us you were building something so amazing? We're sisters. We should stick together in business." Aunt Carol left a voicemail. "Sweetheart, I hope you know how proud we've always been of your entrepreneurial spirit. We always knew you were special." Uncle James sent an email about how he'd love to help me with any legal needs my new wealth might require. The most painful message came from Mom. "Honey, we're so sorry about the confusion with the family trip. We were so focused on logistics that we didn't communicate properly. We love you so much, and we're so proud. Can we take you to dinner to celebrate?" Every single one of them was rewriting history. Suddenly, they'd always believed in me. They'd always known I was capable of great things. The exclusion, the dismissal, the years of being treated as lesser than, none of that had ever happened. But I remembered everything. Within a week, I was invited to 3 different family events I'd never heard about before. Suddenly, my opinion was being sought on everything from investment strategies to career advice. Marcus wanted to know if I was interested in funding his private practice venture. Bethany wondered if I might want to invest in a medical clinic. The transformation was as complete as it was revealing. At Thanksgiving dinner, just 5 months after the reunion debacle, I sat at the head of the table. Not because I demanded it, but because Aunt Carol literally pulled out the chair and insisted. "Sophia should sit here," she announced. "She's our successful entrepreneur." During dinner, every conversation somehow circled back to my success. When Marcus talked about his latest case, someone would mention how I'd probably be interested since I was so good at business strategy. When Bethany discussed her work at the hospital, the conversation shifted to whether I might want to invest in healthcare technology. I was the same person I'd been 6 months earlier. Same personality, same values, same sense of humor. The only thing that had changed was my bank account, and suddenly I was worthy of respect, inclusion, and attention. It was simultaneously vindicating and heartbreaking. By Christmas, I had to make a choice about what kind of relationship I wanted with my family going forward. The vindication was complete. I'd proven every single person who'd dismissed me wrong. I'd succeeded beyond their wildest expectations in a field none of them understood. I had wealth, recognition, and opportunities they'd never dreamed of. But the hollow victory was starting to feel exactly that, hollow. Yes, they treated me differently now. Yes, they included me in everything. Yes, they hung on my every word and treated my opinions as gospel. But was this the family dynamic I actually wanted? I realized I had 3 choices. Embrace the new dynamic and enjoy being the family success story. Cut them off entirely as punishment for years of dismissal. Try to build something real and authentic from this new position of strength. I chose option 3, but with conditions. I asked my parents to meet me for coffee. Just the 3 of us, no extended family, no celebration, no fanfare. We sat in a quiet corner of a cafe, not the one where I used to work, because that felt too symbolic, and I laid out exactly how things were going to change. "I need you to understand something," I started. "The way you treated me before I had money wasn't okay. It wasn't poor coordination or miscommunication. It was a pattern of exclusion and dismissal that told me, very clearly, that I didn't matter as much as everyone else." Mom started to protest, but I continued. "I'm not saying this to punish you or to relitigate the past. I'm saying it because if we're going to have a real relationship going forward, it has to be based on honesty about what happened." I pulled out my phone and showed them screenshots I'd saved from the group chat, months of planning without me, discussions about whether to even tell me about events, casual dismissals of my potential. "This is how you saw me," I said. "And I need you to acknowledge that before we can move forward." The conversation that followed was difficult but necessary. There were tears, apologies, and admissions that were long overdue. Dad finally said what I needed to hear: we were wrong. We treated you like you weren't important because we didn't understand what you were working toward. But that's not an excuse. We should have valued you for who you are, not for what you achieved. The family relationships that emerged from that conversation weren't perfect, but they were honest. I set clear boundaries. I would participate in family events, but not as the token success story to be paraded around. I would share my business insights when asked, but I wouldn't become the family ATM for every investment idea. I would forgive the past, but I wouldn't pretend it never happened. Most importantly, I used my new position to change how our family operated. When my cousin David, Uncle James's younger son, started college, I made sure he was included in all family communications from day one. When my teenage cousin Sarah showed interest in entrepreneurship, I became her mentor, not to show off my success, but to make sure she knew someone believed in her potential. I refused to let my vindication perpetuate the same patterns that had hurt me. Success, I learned, isn't just about proving doubters wrong. It's about what you do with the platform that success provides. I used the consulting income from Golden Gate Ventures to start a scholarship fund for first-generation college students interested in technology. I began mentoring young entrepreneurs, especially women who were building companies in male-dominated industries. I spoke at local colleges about the importance of believing in your own vision, even when nobody else does. I shared my story not to get revenge on my family, but to help other people recognize their own worth before external validation arrives. The coffee shop where I used to work became the first location for my new project, a co-working space specifically designed for service industry workers who were building side businesses. Every Tuesday evening, I hosted workshops on everything from basic coding to business plan development. Marcus, to his credit, became one of my biggest supporters in this work. He provided free legal clinics for aspiring entrepreneurs, and slowly, we built a real relationship based on mutual respect rather than family obligation. Here's what I learned from my journey from family disappointment to millionaire entrepreneur. The best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's becoming so secure in your own worth that their initial dismissal becomes irrelevant. Yes, there was satisfaction in seeing my family shock when they realized who I'd become. Yes, it felt good to watch them scramble to rewrite our history. Yes, I enjoyed the moment when Aunt Carol had to eat her words about me being born to follow, not lead. But the real victory wasn't their changed perception of me. It was my changed perception of myself. For years, I'd internalized their message that I wasn't good enough. I'd believed that my struggles were failures rather than preparation. I'd accepted that I was destined to be the family afterthought. Building ShiftSync taught me that I was capable of extraordinary things. But more importantly, it taught me that I'd always been capable. I just needed to stop seeking permission to prove it. The most surprising part of this entire story is how it ended. Today, 2 years later, my family isn't perfect, but they're genuinely supportive. Not because they have to be, not because I have money, but because we've built real relationships based on mutual respect. Marcus and I now collaborate regularly. He handles legal work for the entrepreneurs I mentor, and I've helped him develop technology solutions for his law practice. We've become actual friends, not just cousins obligated to tolerate each other. Bethany and I started a nonprofit together, using technology to improve healthcare access in underserved communities. She brings medical expertise, I bring technical skills, and together we're making a real difference. Even Aunt Carol, who delivered the devastating quote that motivated my journey, has become one of my most enthusiastic supporters. She volunteers at my co-working space and frequently tells people that she always knew Sophia had it in her. I let her rewrite history because the truth is more complex than my initial anger allowed. People can change, families can grow, and sometimes the people who hurt us can become our strongest allies. I'm 26 now, and my life looks nothing like what anyone expected, including me. I live in a beautiful downtown Denver apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the mountains. I drive a Tesla Model S that I bought with cash. I travel frequently for speaking engagements and business meetings. But the success isn't measured in dollar signs or luxury purchases. It's measured in the dozens of entrepreneurs I've helped launch their own companies. It's measured in the scholarship recipients who are now studying computer science at universities they never thought they could afford. It's measured in the family relationships that were rebuilt on honest foundations. Last month, I received an invitation that made me smile, the family reunion group chat for this summer's gathering. But this time, I wasn't an afterthought added at the last minute. I was part of the planning committee from day one. The location? A lake house that I'm renting for the family. My treat. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you're the family member who gets overlooked, the employee who gets passed over, the person whose dreams are dismissed as unrealistic, I want you to know something. Their inability to see your potential is not evidence that you don't have potential. Your current circumstances are not your permanent destination. The people who underestimate you today may become your biggest supporters tomorrow, but only if you stay focused on building something meaningful rather than just proving them wrong. I spent 2 years building ShiftSync in secret, not because I was hiding from my family, but because I was building for myself. The external validation was wonderful when it came, but it wasn't the point. The point was creating something valuable, developing skills I was proud of, and becoming the person I wanted to be. Success isn't about making people who dismissed you feel bad. Success is about making yourself feel proud. But I won't lie, watching their faces turn pale when I announced my acquisition, that part was pretty satisfying too. 3 years ago, I was a coffee shop worker living above a laundromat, excluded from my own family's vacation planning, treated as an afterthought at family gatherings. Today, I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, and philanthropist with the financial freedom to live anywhere and do anything. But you know what the most important change is? I don't need their approval anymore. I love my family. I'm grateful for the relationships we've rebuilt. I enjoy being included in their lives as an equal rather than an obligation. But my self-worth isn't dependent on their recognition. My dreams aren't limited by their imagination. My potential isn't defined by their expectations. That freedom, the freedom to be authentically yourself regardless of external validation, is worth more than any acquisition, any bank account, any public recognition. And that's a success that no one can ever take away from you. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you for listening. If you've ever felt underestimated or overlooked, please share your experience in the comments. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in the struggle is the first step toward building something extraordinary. And if you're currently working on something that nobody else believes in, keep building. Your vindication is coming, but more importantly, you're becoming exactly who you're meant to be. The best revenge really is living well, not to spite others, but to honor yourself. Trust me, I would know. What do you think? Have you ever been underestimated by people who should have supported you? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if this resonated with you. Your support means everything to creators like me who are sharing real stories about overcoming doubt and building something meaningful.